Hey guys, Natalia here, and welcome to the fourth and final installment of my series on the Cold War. In the last episode, you'll remember that we talked about how the Berlin Wall came down, but there were actually other factors that led to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. For one, there was a new Soviet leader named Mikhail Gorbachev, and he ushered in a new era of reform and opening up. This was referred to as glasnost and perestroika. Any Russians out there, please correct my pronunciation. But glasnost essentially means transparency and openness. And it was a policy of open discussion over political and social issues. So criticizing public officials was allowed for the first time ever in Soviet history, and media controls were really loosened up, and there was a much freer and more open society. And then perestroika means restructuring. So that was a series of economic reforms, like loosening up state control of businesses, and it gave managers and business owners more freedom to pursue their own interests rather than having the state tell them how they need to run their business. And there were also political reforms. So Gorbachev pushed through the first truly democratic elections since the Russian Revolution in 1917. So as you can imagine, all of these changes radically transformed Soviet society within Russia and also all across the Soviet Union. The first elections also resulted in a massive reshaping of the Congress. So it's kind of like out with the old and in with the new. And then on the international stage, Gorbachev and American President Ronald Reagan, they were making global headlines by improving the relations between the US and the Soviet Union for the first time ever. I mean, if you can imagine what American society was like, I mean, this was a generation that had grown up covering underneath desks because they were having nuclear war drills in elementary school. And now all of a sudden, the leaders of the two countries are hanging out, are meeting, are even, I mean, just talking. I mean, that was a really big deal. So all of this is going on. And then also technology. Technology is radically reshaping the entire world because you couldn't keep a repressive state the way that you had for the decades before. So as you can imagine, there was quite a lot of pushback to these changes. Many former hardliners in the government, they did not take this new loss of power lightly, and they were severely opposed to Gorbachev's reforms. Some argue that Gorbachev is responsible for the collapse of the Soviet Union. Others say that he had no choice, he had to reform, and the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union was inevitable, and Gorbachev softened the blow. Overall, I think he's quite popular in the West, and maybe not so popular back home in Russia. But to bring it back to today, I just really hope that this series helped you understand a little bit more about our history and how we got to where we are today. See, the collapse of the Soviet Union made the United States the de facto winner of the Cold War. Around the world, it became almost common knowledge. Oh yeah, the American system is the best. Capitalism, democracy. It was known as the end of history. And it was believed that it would be just a matter of time before every other country got in line and eventually ended up as a liberal democracy following the American model. The globalized world that we were all born into, and the norms and values and ideas that we've all been taught, the institutions that we've grown up with, they've all been shaped by the aftermath of the Cold War. And America has kind of ruled unchallenged for a few decades. That is until now. But that's for another episode. So I'll see you next time. I really hope you enjoyed this. Send me your questions and we'll speak soon. See you guys.